is increasing somewhat, but not that much. Asia, that everyone talks about, is increasing, but not that much. And why is that? Because, again, it's a prediction. Asia will continue to grow, but then as the countries mature, population will stabilize. But look at Africa, 4.5 times as many people in 15 years as, 90 years almost, as today. The city where I live, it's called Nairobi. No one knows exactly how many people live there, but the estimate is about 5 million. And if you just take that pro rata, that means that city will have 22 or 23 million people in 2010. It's a great opportunity. It's also scary, because how are we going to deal with that? Already we have cuts, water cuts, power cuts, internet bandwidth issues, traffic jams, which are, you guys are complaining in South Africa about traffic. Welcome to Kenya. And that's 4.5 times as much. But this is an interesting, very important thing we'd like to mention. So this is the continent where, this is where it's growing, right? South Africa is the 5th biggest country in Africa in terms of population, because Nigeria is the colossus. You know, almost 200 million people. I think it's the 10th biggest or 5th or 6th, whatever, biggest country in the world in terms of population. Ethiopia, Egypt, and then another country that we are doing business in as we speak, the DRC, Congo, is also bigger than South Africa. And there are 54 countries and approximately 1,200 to 3,000 languages. It depends on how do you define a language, right? Now, a main language is of course English, and we all here speak English, but bear in mind that more than half of Africa is actually Francophone. The whole West Africa and some parts of Central Africa, people wouldn't be able to participate in this conversation because they don't understand English so well. They speak French. And then if you go to North Africa, it's Arab. And then if you go to some countries in East Africa, it's Swahili. And I think here, just in South Africa, I think you have 11 official languages, but at least most people speak English as a sort of a common language among the people. It's not the case in a lot of African countries. People do not speak English, right? So that's also something to take into account.
Then if you look at the next one, so I think this is quite interesting and this is very powerful. The youngest population of all continents is actually Africa. And this was 2012, and what we've seen is still the same. So the average age is 19.7 years, globally 30.5. And as we all know, who's the people who accepts technology the easiest? Is young people. It's a young, dynamic population, the continent that's growing, and that's people who's very receptive for technology, which will go further. Interesting thing is, I think in South Africa we all think Joburg is the biggest city. Unfortunately, it's not. Lagos is actually much bigger. Then you get Cairo, Kinshasa, and then Johannesburg. And then just for interesting thing about religion as well, 45% Christian, 40 Muslim, and 10% traditional. So a bit of economics, and we could probably bore you with a lot of stats. We just want to put this one up, and I don't know if you could see it, but 4 of the world's fastest growing economies in 2050 are sub-Saharan African countries.
So this is where it's happening. The countries that are growing the quickest in 2015, and actually it was a little more pronounced before, because 2015 was not a great year for Africa as a whole. Actually, GDP growth has been a bit disappointing because of the decrease in the mining and the oil and gas prices. But 4 out of 10 countries in the world of the quickest growing are actually right here in this continent, and they are Ethiopia, Mozambique, the Congo again, and Ivory Coast. 2 of those are French-speaking, one is Amharic-speaking, English-speaking, and one is Portuguese-speaking. So again, they don't look alike. They're very different, but they're growing very quickly. Admittedly, from a low base, yes, they're all poor countries, but they're growing and quickly. So keep that in mind. And the others they all seem to be in Asia. So they're not in Europe, that's for sure, and they're also not in America.
And let's talk a little about the opportunities. So the first thing I think what you can see is that Africa for the next 90 years is the only continent that's got a 100% growing population. Secondly, even more rapidly growing is actually the middle class. I think young Albert can share a little bit more about the middle class as well, but yeah, and as I said so many times, high acceptance of new technology. It's quite amazing if you travel around to see, and this is not just, this is even in the DRC, which is a very poor country, 90% of the people is unemployed. But if you go to the DRC, you will actually see people with cell phones. And if I say a cell phone, we're not talking an old Nokia, the ones that you still have to use your finger like this. It's actually proper smartphones. So the most interesting thing is that people are very receptive. And we'll talk a little bit about M-Pesa as well, but that's probably the best example of to see how receptive people are and how people will accept new technologies. As long as it can make a difference in your life, it's something that's actually very receptive in Africa. Improvement, I think, it's been doing business ranking. I don't know if you know about that ranking, and Africa is actually improving. And then I think the last point is, in the past, Africa has been seen as the place of mining, and that is changing. There's a strong movement to other sectors as well, especially the ITC sectors, the retail sectors, telecommunication, and even call centers. So I think, and this is what's exciting about Africa, is that Africa is not a one-dimensional continent anymore where people were just doing mines. They're actually turning into a lot of other things except commodities.
Just to give you an example again, my hometown, Nairobi, if you go one slide back, 4.5 times as many people predicted, and proportionally the middle class is growing even quicker. So in other words, let's say the middle class will grow by about tenfold, right? And I've lived there now for 8 years. When I moved to Nairobi, there were about 3 to 4 shopping malls.